Let's friggin' face it, Konami has been pretty crap lately with how they've been treating their popular IPs, whether it's with footage for a supposed HD revamp of Snake Eater that turned out to be for a pachinko machine, or, just dropping the ball in general with everything they've done for the past 5 years or so. Little stuff like that. Now, with Bloodstained coming out later this year, you would think that maybe they might step up their game a bit and release a new Castlevania or something to compete with it, but Konami being Konami decided that of all things, a mobile game would be the best means of capturing people's attention and getting back into the market. The mobile game in question is Castlevania Grimoire of Souls, and it was announced for iOS back in April. And what we know about it so far is pretty basic, so I'm going to skip rehashing that and instead focus on issues I have with the current info, or, problems that might arise later on after the game is released. Now, I am going to be making a few comparisons to Harmony of Despair, and while I do thoroughly enjoy that game, I'll admit that it does have some flaws that I can see being continued in Grimoire of Souls, if not made completely worse by the way things are with gaming now, with microtransactions and all that crap. So, this is why I am worried about Castlevania Grimoire of Souls. First off is the 2.5D graphical style that they've decided to pursue. Now this might be a minor nitpick on my end, but I really don't think that this style is appropriate for a series so heavily rooted in 2D sprite work and backgrounds. It just seems like they're blatantly following what Bloodstained is doing, just try to capture maybe people that are torn between the two games, if, that even happens. And, to me personally, the 3D and the 2D style, the 2.5D, I guess, it just doesn't look as impressive. Now, they could have honestly just reused old sprites and backgrounds like they did with Harmony of Despair, but I guess that since they are making entirely new assets, that they are actually putting some sort of effort into the game. If not, trying to make it seem like they are putting a lot more effort than they really are. I don't know.
You don't belong in this world.
Next up are microtransactions and DLC. Now, microtransactions are one of the few things that have been announced about Grimoire, and this should really not come as a big surprise, seeing as it is a mobile game, and this is 2018. Now, my worries lie with the extent to which they will be implemented, and how much of the game is going to end up being locked behind a paywall. Making a slight comparison to Harmony of Despair, slight in quotation marks, buying the game and all the character, music, and level DLC today would set you back $54, with only 15 of those 54 being the base game. Now, it didn't help that all the characters and levels had to be purchased individually, and I can imagine that this must have been hell for people who wanted to play the game online, through co-op or what. Now, I'm hoping that for Grimoire, that content like new levels and characters will be lumped together into DLC packs, just to make things a little bit more convenient. But seeing that microtransactions were specifically mentioned, I doubt this is going to happen. Like, really, I doubt it. Again, with Harmony, there was only one form of currency, gold, that you earned either through collection in levels or by selling weapons and equipment in the in-game store. Now, most of your big mobile games these days have two. One that you earn legitimately through playing the game, like the gold in Harmony of Despair. And there's also usually a premium currency, which you either pay money for or that they drip feed you in frustratingly small amounts, and I mean frustratingly small amounts. Often the former only lets you buy fairly basic stuff, while the latter, you can almost break the game. I mean, in some cases, there is only a premium currency, and you can literally pay to win in games like that. Konami didn't really say how they would implement microtransactions into Grimoire, but I really hope that premium currency is left out of the picture. I don't know how realistic that is, but it's just a little hope.
I was called here by humans who wish to pay me.
Now, I feel I should also mention how Grimoire was announced. And to be honest, it just seemed like it came out of the blue, and that there were more plans for content than actual footage or screenshots or any other sort of deliverable. Also, they didn't really give a release date for the game, but I guess they did kind of mention that a closed beta will be starting soon at some point, so, I mean, I don't know how far that would put it off. I actually tried to sign up for the closed beta, but the website was all in Japanese, and I couldn't tell what was a button and what was a, title block for a paragraph or whatnot. Now, this issue I have is pretty self-explanatory, so I'm not really going to discuss it. I mean, if this were an actual, full release game on PC or consoles, I would be worried that an ambiguous release date, combined with a general lack of info, would lead to unrealistic expectations for the game on the part of the fans, but since this is a mobile game, and since it's Konami in 2018, I really don't think anyone's expectations are going to skyrocket. I mean, there's really no point in getting worked up about it or anything. Now my biggest issue with this game, and I guess this extends to mobile gaming in general, so maybe this isn't that fair, but it's touchscreen controls. Now, I'm not much of a mobile gamer, but I have played enough iOS games to know that when you make the transition from controller to touchscreen, it almost always comes at the cost of playability. Like, I've never seen a time where it doesn't. Now, the big problem with touch controls is that a significant portion of the screen becomes obscured with virtual buttons and control pads, and then even your own thumbs when you actually try to play the damn game. I mean, it's especially frustrating when you got like 2D games, like especially fighters. You know, you're trying to be very precise, and you end up accidentally covering up this part of the screen with your thumb. I've had that happen before, or you just lose track of the buttons. Now, I know the workaround to this is a Bluetooth controller, but I'm pretty sure that the game has to have support programmed in order for them to work. There's like, it's not a universal thing. I think it'd be wise if Konami implemented Bluetooth controller support, just, you know, to make the game a little easier to play for people. But, I don't know. They haven't said anything about it yet, but we'll see. Finally, we're onto the roster. Now, so far, only 7 characters have been revealed, and really only one of them's a new character. For some reason, they're trying to pass off Genya Ricardo as a new character, even though he's Goth Alucard. Spoiler alert for anyone who didn't know. The rest, you got Genoa, you got Soma, you got Simon Belmont, Alucard, I guess, Maria, and then you got Charlotte. Now, this roster is pretty well-rounded. It's not very inspired, though. It's pretty much just a watered-down Harmony roster. I mean, you know, with Castlevania, it has a freaking immense list of playable and supporting characters. I mean, with over 20-plus games spanning, you know, over 30 years, it'd be nice to see more obscure characters, you know, return eventually. I mean, especially since they're not limiting themselves to pre-existing assets this time around. I mean, you got people like Cornell, Albus, Maxim, the Lacarde sisters, you know, all 5 of which have been playable in the past before in one game or another, but never really came back, which is kind of a shame. I'm also somewhat miffed. Now, this is just a nitpick that they're deciding to use, you know, the Rondo version of Maria again, instead of the more obscure Symphony version. But yeah, that's just a nitpick, I don't know. Now, with all this in mind, I think that there's still a possibility that we'll end up with a game that's at least playable. Now, do I also think that there's a decent chance that Konami will find a way to screw up Grimoire? Yeah, I do, but that's just how things will have to be. They're known for that now, and, you know, it shouldn't come as a surprise. But maybe they'll get things right this time and produce something that is legitimately enjoyable and fun, but if not, there's really no point in getting mad about it, as, you know, for one, it's a mobile game, and for two, they've already proven that they don't know what to do with Metal Gear since Kojima left, so it shouldn't be any surprise that the same should befall Castlevania without Iga. I'll probably review the game after it's released, so until then, this is just some food for thought.
But you must always remember that the only thing necessary for evil to triumph is for good men to do nothing.